Sure, you've read Stephen King's new novel Holly, but do you know what it's really about? Holly really has taken its place as one of the best mystery and or thriller novels of the year. On the surface, it seems like a pretty straightforward novel. It's about two elderly serial killers as Holly Gibney, one of Stephen King's favorite characters, tries to track them down. One of the things that brings me back to Stephen King's novels over and over again is not just the horror in them, but really what Stephen King has to say about life, about American society, about the human condition, about the soul, and everything else. You know, when I read Carrie, I don't think just about a girl with kinetic abilities. I think about what puberty does to human beings and what it can do to women and what is woman's role in society. When I read The Shining, I don't just think about a killer in a haunted hotel. I think about addiction and how that can really ruin someone's life. And while I was reading Holly, I kept thinking about what is he trying to get at? What is he really trying to say? What is the underlying theme here? What I think is really being said here, what Stephen King is really getting at, is twofold. One, it's about what the power of belief can do to people when they ignore science. And I'm not just talking about the narrative on COVID. I think there's a meta narrative here. Now, this is going to get a little spoilery, but not too much. There are two elderly cannibalistic serial killers in the book, the Harris family. And what they're doing is they're taking people and consuming them because they think it's going to keep them young, to keep them healthy, to keep them safe. There isn't any scientific evidence that cannibalism makes people better or it helps people, but that's what they believe. And so that's what drives them to do what they do. And I don't think it's a surprise that it's set in the time of COVID, that it's set during a time when we sort of have these bizarre ideas about science.
They're watering crops with a sports drink?
The second, and I think less obvious theme of the book is what time does to the human body. Stephen King's no longer a sprightly young fellow. I mean, he's almost 80 at this point.
I'm old.
A lot of the discussion of aches and pains and growing older in this book comes from personal experience. It's hard to read, it's hard to think about, and it's hard to listen to, but it's the truth. What happens as people get older is that life gets harder. It gets harder to exist and to do the things that used to be easy. Every character in the book describes his or her aches or pains. And there's a lot of attention to detail, not to body horror in the way that we'd see in something from David Cronenberg. You know, this isn't The Brood or Scanners, but it's a very real encapsulation of what happens to the human body, about what happens to us when we age. And there is something insidious about that. It's scary in a way that is more existential than graphic. Now, a little more spoiler here. I expected there to be a scene involving the wood chipper. It's the gun that doesn't go off in the third act. This book is more about the human condition, literally the human condition. And it's not always easy to read. And it's not about how disgusting things are. It's the reality of what happens to us as we age. And I think that's really what Stephen King's dealing with. I mean, his books have always been somewhat autobiographical. I mean, dating back to, I mentioned earlier, The Shining. The Shining is about addiction, and Stephen King struggled with addiction early on, especially to alcohol. Jack Torrance in The Shining is a raging alcoholic. And then we've had a whole series of novels about people being struck by cars and damaged by cars in some way or another, and the devastating after effects. So I think this, more than others, is Stephen King reaching out at a world that maybe he doesn't understand as much anymore, and inside a body that doesn't quite feel like his anymore, because there is no cure for old age. There is no cure for aging. There is no magic. I expected there to be a supernatural element to the story, but the fact that there isn't grounds it even more in reality and makes it even that much more depressing. So even though there is nothing fantastical about Holly by Stephen King. One of the things that I think Holly does really well is portray life as it really is. There's something awfully realistic about it and about us. And what this book has to say about us is very grim. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe. Hit the thumbs up button. You'll get more videos of me talking about books very briefly. Have fun, subscribe, like, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.